Bob.
Yeah, good morning. At this time, I'd like to call the pension committee meeting to order. And at this time, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our friends Tim and Jim from Alesco Advisors.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be here on this beautiful spring day. And given the time and the important things that Jim wants to talk about related to the capital markets review, I'll be brief in going through the asset allocation and the performance of the funds. So let's start with the first account, looking at the non-salary DB plan.
I gotta link it up, so you guys can walk through it, and if I can get it up, I'll get it up.
All right, that's great. So for those in the room that have the books, we're on page 1 in tab A, looking at the non-salary DB plan. So this is as of the end of March. The asset allocation was just over 64%, and that is right in the middle of the investment policy range. And the remaining 35% of the portfolio for the pension plan is in fixed income, real return assets, and a little bit in cash. And again, the real return assets are inflation-protected government securities, so bonds from an inflation adjustment standpoint. So everything is in line with the investment policy. On the next page, that 64% of equity is allocated on the page. Roughly 70-30 between domestic and international. That's been a consistent allocation for some time. We break out the international at 30%. That's been the best performing asset class over the last year in the portfolio. So from a diversification standpoint, that's been very, very helpful to performance. The largest piece of the portfolio is large cap blend at about 40%. That's S&P 500 large cap stocks. And the remaining 23 or so percent push down the capitalization spectrum into small cap, mid cap, and also some factor exposure in value stocks. Those have also been very good performers recently as we've had a shift in asset class performance from large cap oriented over the last couple of years more to international and the small cap and value. So the Alesco portfolios have done, they're designed to weather these changing trends from a leadership standpoint, and we've had a good evidence of that happening from the allocation. Page 3 is the fixed income holdings. So how are those exposed? So that's overall, the right number again, about 27% of the portfolio, mostly in the core bond portfolio holding at 80%. You'll remember I mentioned we added this asset-backed holding at the end of 2025. That's been a good performer from a portfolio standpoint since we implemented that in December. Comparable yields to the corporate bond market and less credit risk. So we've improved the quality of the portfolio and reduced some of the risk. The duration in this fixed income portfolio is about 5.7 years, still in line with the overall bond market, yielding about 4.3%. So very nice yield. And that actually helped from a performance standpoint. We did see in the quarter of fixed income be affected a little bit by the crisis in Iran, but the yield on the portfolio really overcame some of the bond price increase that we saw in the portfolio. So that was helpful as yields went up a little bit. Prices went down, yields went up during the month. So the yield has been helpful from a performance standpoint. And then finally, just that small piece of tips. They've performed well from a diversification standpoint. Again, the interest and principal on those bonds are adjusted, so it's a very good inflation hedge. We've had some concerns about inflation over the last quarter because of oil prices, and so this portfolio has performed nicely versus the bond market. Again, the idea of being diversified throughout our fixed income holdings. No changes to any of the allocations are we contemplating in the next quarter, or did we make any changes in the past quarter? Performance is on page 5 for the non-salaried plan. I'll just highlight that the combination of the 3 accounts, the salaried, the non-salaried, and the Utica plan have now reached $105 million together. So that's quite a milestone from the asset base of those particular funds. You'll see in the quarter that it was basically a flat quarter. We had very good performance in January and February, and then the conflict in Iran caused a market downturn. Fears about higher oil prices, how that was going to affect corporate earnings and inflation, and the market reset during the month of March. Just as a verbal update since then, we've had quite a rebound in the capital markets since the end of March. And that's based on the ceasefire, the expectation from the market's perspective that this is going to be a short-lived event. Jim will have more detail about that. But the portfolio for this particular holding, the assets are up 5.5% in the month of April. So we've retraced all the losses of the year, and you have basically a 5% return so far this year as of the close of trading middle of this week. It's about a $2 million gain and about $45 million in assets. So that's a real positive development, and just in just a period of about 3 weeks. I won't go through the line of all the performance here in every one of these, but you can see your 1-year numbers. I do want to focus on that briefly at 15.35%. So this is at the end of your the reporting period for the pension plan for your fiscal year, and you've got double the expected return of the actuarial rate of return for the plan, which is about 7%. So that's a very good thing from the plan's perspective. And you can see as we look across most of the time frames, not the 5-year period, but for the inception period, you're at 8.4. So this plan has, for the long term, the last 6 years or so, met the actuarial rate of return, which is important for the plan health. And the asset allocation has been appropriate for the risk and the performance of the plan. So as fiduciaries, you should be pleased with seeing that. So we go to page 6. I'll just spend a little bit of time looking at the quarter to date and the 1-year numbers to focus on how that asset allocation has helped from a performance standpoint in a diversification perspective. So in the quarter to date, you see, again, this was at the end of March before we had the rebound, your equities were basically flat, down about 1/3%. But the larger holdings in the portfolio, the large part of the market, large cap holdings were down 4%. So the broad market had a bigger downturn. The diversification into small cap, mid cap, you see those listed. 3.5% in the quarter for small cap. International down a little bit, but not as much as domestic large cap stock. So where we look at the global benchmark for equities, this MSCI, ACWI, All Country World, was down about 2.75%, but the equity in the portfolio down about 1/3. Our goal isn't necessarily to try to outperform a benchmark in any particular period, but the diversification in this time frame certainly helped from a performance standpoint because the holdings performed the way that they did. And the portfolio, we weren't guessing of what was going to be a better performing asset class. We already had exposure to those particular assets. And you see that playing out in the 1 year too. When we look at, we've talked about this in previous meetings as we move to the right on the page, the MSCI EAFE index, that's the developed international world, Japan, Australia, up 22% or 21% for the year. Emerging markets up 29% for the 1 year period. Lots of strength there in those particular markets, improving earnings in the companies in those areas, and a weaker U.S. dollar helping to drive that return, which is better than the U.S. Performance overall too. And you also see that small cap stocks, 20.5% return, outperform large cap. So that allows your equities overall to outperform that global benchmark as well, which is right below the 21.67%. So all in all, a very strong fiscal year for equity performance. And you see the returns, if we just follow across, very high level of equity returns above the global benchmark during those time periods. And then fixed income, I just want to highlight again the 5-year period as we move down the line. The gray lines, again, as a reminder, on this page, so we're on page 6. Are your rolled up performance for each of the asset classes. So 3.5% return over the last 3 years, 4.29 for fixed income this year. But if we highlight the performance in the quarter to date, comparing you see that performance of the real return assets up a little bit more, 0.64 for the quarter. That's the impact of the inflation adjustment on those funds. So the diversification that we get there, and if we move over to the 5-year time period, we see that those real return assets have also outperformed over the last 5 years because of the inflation component, highlighting that diversification benefit that we get between the two funds. We go to the next page, page 7, just one last point about performance and comparative performance between managers. We looked at the allocations versus your indexes, how they performed very favorably there. And we also like to look at how the pension plan performs against other managers in the way that they deliver returns for their clients. This is OCIO, stands for Outsourced Chief Investment Officer. That's the role that Alesco plays for the Centro plans. This is data that comes from big institutional managers, $50 million or greater, and their discretionary assets. So how the managers performed for their clients in the DB pension space, which is the first line, and then just based on your risk profile of the asset allocation. And you can see in all these time frames, you have very favorable performance. We look at a little bit longer data, 1, 3, and 5 years. It's a quarter lag. It's at the end of the year, not the end of the quarter, but we see those same comparisons. And it's another example of just the effectiveness of 25, 12/31/25 versus 3/31. This data doesn't come out till a quarter lag. So it's just another sign as a fiduciary that the assets are being managed in a very effective way versus other managers, and you see that in the data that we have here on the page. Any questions at all about allocation or performance for the non-salaried plan? Okay, we'll go to tab B, and I will take you through these in a much quicker fashion because I want to make sure Jim has time for his comments. All these portfolios, as you know, they're managed in the same fashion. They have the same asset allocation. So the salaried DB plan on page 10, 64% equity. I'll skip through 11, 12 because the asset allocations for equity, fixed income, and the real return assets on 13 are all the same. And then if we just briefly look at page 14, we'll take a look at performance just so you can see that they're basically the same. So we had a flat return in the 1 year period, and then 15% for the flat return in the quarter and a 15% return in the 1 year time period, and you're up about 5% year to date. And the longer term returns are above the actuarial expected rate of return. And page 15 and 16 show the asset allocation performance of the different asset classes, and the OCIO performance is exactly the same. And if we jump to tab C, rush you through it too much, but just so you can see, this is for the Utica plan. Asset allocation at 65% too at the end of the quarter, managing all these independently, keeping the same asset allocation right in line with the investment policy. The equities, fixed income, and real return all the same as well in terms of the mix and holdings. And if we check just a quick look at performance on page 23, you still see the same quarter to date, basically a flat return for the quarter and the 15% return for the 1 year, and the longer term achieving a return higher than the actuarial expected rate of return at 7%. So all very consistent, managing the three plans independently of each other, done a nice job keeping them all the same performance, with the same holdings. Any questions at all related to that? All right, with that, hand it off to Jim.
Thank you, Jim. Good morning. Good to see you all. If you just jump ahead to page 29, yes, perfect. You got it up there already. Oil futures slide. So you all are well aware of what's happening in the Middle East, the conflict that's there, and just a couple points. I mean, first of all, surprise to us in terms of just how resilient the market has been. We had a sell-off, but nothing draconian. It was relatively minor in the grand scheme of things, relatively minor pullback in equity pricing. The bond market sold off a little bit too, but nothing dramatic there either. And so why is that the case? Because this is certainly, we've seen oil prices jump up very dramatically. We're seeing inflation increase very significantly. Why is the market responding as though none of that happened? And the answer is really just how the market is wired. What the market has always done is the market is very forward-looking. The market isn't looking at what happened today, it's looking at what's going to happen in the future. And so we get an idea of what that feels like by looking at oil pricing. And we look at the futures contract for oil. If you look at this slide on page 29, you'll see, just as you're reading in the headlines, that oil futures are, depending on whether you're looking at West Texas Intermediate or Brent crude, but they're in the high 90s to the low 100s per barrel. But that's a 30 days out. When we look at longer term futures, you'll see how much lower the oil futures are trading. And that's the oil market expecting a resolution of some sort, but in some material fashion, of the conflict that we're having with Iran. And so because we're not looking at oil at $100 a barrel over the next year or for several years out, that's not what the market's expectation is. Where the market has already moved beyond that and looking at pricing. And so the expectation is if we come back to more normalized pricing for oil, that's going to be a good thing for the economy. It's going to take some pressure off of the inflation bite that we're all feeling right now. And that ultimately would allow then the Federal Reserve to start thinking about cutting interest rates again, because that's completely off the table right now with in this higher inflationary environment. So that's a brief explanation of where the market collectively, where the mindset is that they're looking beyond this crisis. Now, it's important to note that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen, right? There's all kinds of, this could go on for a lot longer. Now, that's an entirely different kettle of fish, should that happen. Because what would happen, the big issue, as you all know, is the Strait of Hormuz, which is right now the bottleneck, literally and figuratively, for the flow of oil. And so that the Strait of Hormuz, if we have an extended crisis, that's more likely, the longer we go within this war, the more likely it is that the Strait of Hormuz is going to be tied up for longer because of, they're laying mines there, the Iranian emphasis of, they know that that's the pain point that they have with the United States and really with the rest of the world is that particular little stretch of water. And so they really are flexing their muscle right now and are introducing pain on a broader basis. And of course, from their standpoint, they want all this to end as soon as possible, and that by inflicting more pain on the global economy, that puts a lot more pressure on the United States to end this thing, to get it over with. And there's a tremendous amount of pressure, which we're all reading about every day. So the oil market is saying this pressure is going to work. I think the other thing too to keep in mind is that in November we have midterm elections, right? Yeah. And so the president does not want to be fighting over there and have oil staying at these prices for through November, because he knows what the outcome is going to be for Republicans, very unfavorable. So he's under a lot of pressure then to make adjustments, make a change to wrap this thing up. So that could be what happens. That's certainly what I think we're all hoping happens. But again, the oil market is expecting it to happen. So if we go to the next slide, any questions about that? I just think this is, the old saying, although I probably did use 1,000 words, a picture's worth 1,000 words. That's a good picture. You got both. You got the picture and the 1,000.
So everything happening here is going to affect us locally, right?
I'm sorry?
Everything happening here is going to affect us locally.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, locally, globally. Yeah, the whole planet's being affected by energy pricing right now. United States, as an aside, as you probably know, we are a net exporter of energy. The United States is actually the largest producer of energy in the world. But we don't have the infrastructure for us to use it. So, because we don't have the pipelines have been proposed, they haven't been built, you may be for or against that thought, doesn't matter if they're not built. And so what happens is from a utilization standpoint, even though we're exporting oil, we actually import oil as well because we're bringing it into the locations where the refineries are so that they can be converted to the different fuels that we need and other petroleum products.
So one question, why are they not emphasizing on solar energy more?
So that's a great question, and in fact, what will very likely be an outcome of all this is that there'll be, what other kind of alternative energy sources can we be looking at? But it may be more outside of the United States than it is here, because if those countries who are completely dependent upon imported oil, they're the ones that have the greatest, be more highly motivated to use solar energy or wind energy or water energy, any of the different sources that are broadly used. All right, so just on page 30, so you can see the inflation expectations, not surprisingly, kind of look like the similar looking to the chart that we just saw about oil. But this is in years, where the previous slide was in months. And so, but the expectation is the same, is that the investors are expecting inflation to subside quite significantly over the next few years. But what's interesting here, if you look at the green line versus the purple line, that's only 1 month apart. That the purple line was what the expectations were as of the end of February, and now we see where we are at what the expectations are as of March 31st. That's a green line. And again, these are years. So now what you've seen is that several years out, we're expecting a hangover, in effect, from what's happening in the Middle East. That we're going to see petroleum prices decline, but there's going to be, because of the shock that we have, that's going to be working its way through the different production systems, economic systems, for some time to come. And so inflation is, as a result of energy pricing, could be higher for longer. And so the net, if we look at the bottom chart here, the Federal Reserve, if you look at those little those purple bars, that was the number of hikes that, or in this case cuts, that the Federal Reserve was projected to make at the end of February versus the teal bars, which is just a much lower number, the cuts that are expected as of the end of March. So interest rates are likely to be higher for longer because inflation is now likely to be higher for longer. The Federal Reserve has two things to worry about. They have two functions. One is protecting the purchasing power of the dollar, and that's a nice way of saying keep inflation in check. And then the second thing is maximize employment. And so our unemployment rate is only at 4.2, 4.3%. That's a very low unemployment rate. So there's not an employment issue. So now that allows them to really be focused on inflation. And we could see seen some softening in employment, but there's still a lot of job openings out there. And the number of job openings relative to the number of unemployed is basically equal. So it's not, where you're looking for, where you're likely to see future softness is when you start to see the number of job openings drop below the number of people who are unemployed. All right, so I just have another couple minutes here. I think it's important to take a step back, and on page 31, this happens. Nick, hi.
Hi, good morning, guys. Question on that labor piece is for my own information. Has that reacted at all? I know unemployment numbers are hard data. For example, what's happening with AI, for example, I think it was Meta. Might have been a big cut in positions or something. I can't remember.
Microsoft is doing that.
Are you looking at that? Because what I'm looking at is AI coming in, going to be taking on more jobs. Baby boomers are gonna be booming out. Okay, the last time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Moving up.
yeah.
Oh,
So,
that's before the day.
they look at all that. That's-
Yeah. So, the first thing is the shorter term impact of AI is going to be higher levels of earnings for businesses because you're going to see more productivity in the short run. Okay, so now we're looking at, the stock market cares about interest rates and earnings. And so that's what the stock market does. So there could be a dislocation in terms of where we could see higher levels of unemployment, or at a minimum, changes in the work profile of what our workforce is doing over the next 5 to 10 years versus what it's doing today. And so and with that, very often would be likely a decline in the pay, in effect, compensation for people. Could be some dislocations. If you take one of the poster child examples for job losses in AI is a financial analyst, right? If you're kind of a traditional budget analyst, controller analyst, internal control analyst, a lot of that is very likely going to be automated. So the question is, what can that financial analyst, what skill set does that person have that can be applied elsewhere in the organization or elsewhere in the economy? And so that's going to be a large part of what I think you see businesses do, because businesses don't want to lay people off. They want to have productivity, but can they redeploy high quality people elsewhere in their organization? And so I think you'll see, particularly the larger companies, do provide additional training to their workforce to try to mitigate that.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. But part of what you're looking at, and I don't know to what degree, but this slide here is the top chart just basically shows you that even with everything that's happening in Iran, that we're seeing corporate, the GDP, gross domestic product, our economy continues to grow. And then the bottom slide is that earnings are projected to be very robust this year and next. And so if we can get this issue settled in the Middle East and the concept of interest rate reductions gets put back on the plate, I think you could see a very attractive return in your portfolio for the next few quarters here. I want to jump way ahead because I'm actually slightly over time.
You're okay, we're okay.
We're okay? Okay. Let's jump. I want to look at page 35. This gets into a couple things we were just talking about. So the top chart shows non-farm payroll gains or lack thereof. And so what's happened is that we're not adding as many new jobs as we were just a few years ago. But keep in mind that when we go back to those higher bars there in 2022 and 2023, we're still coming out of the pandemic from 2020 and 2021. So we had a lot of jobs out there, and it was very difficult for employers to find workers. We're probably all familiar with that.
Yeah.
There were a lot more job openings, almost 2 job openings for every 1 person who was unemployed. So the price of labor moved up, and that was part of the inflationary trend that we were dealing with then. The other interesting point is the chart on the bottom, which you may have seen that consumer sentiment has hit an all-time low. And there are actually some very important structural reasons for that. The most important of which, Tim and I were talking about this on the drive over, is that the digitization of our world, the networking that has taken place, where everybody becomes, in effect, simultaneously aware of the same information. And so we all react at the same time. Our herd mentality, our herding instincts are alive and well, but we all react in the same way. And so if you think about consumer sentiment being as low, the lowest it's ever been since 1960 when they started tracking that, this is clearly not the worst time since 1960, not even close. I mean, the economy's doing well, very low unemployment. So it's just the fact that people are reacting at the same moment to negative information. So I think that consumer sentiment thing, some way they're gonna, University of Michigan, who does that survey, they're gonna have to normalize that or adjust that for this digitalization issue. And the other key thing, what you can see, my point here, in effect, being validated is by the green line, that consumer spending continues to be high and actually increasing. And so consumers are alive and well, consumption is alive and well. Our government can't stop spending money, right? We're keep issuing, selling bonds, and we're keep going deeper and deeper into debt. And so there's a lot of stimulus out there which is very likely going to result in continued economic expansion, and very likely that normally, doesn't always happen, but normally that's associated with higher stock pricing. All right, and then while I made that one point, I'm going to go back to the previous slide, page 34, please. I want to just talk about the yield curve on the top there. And we don't really have the data that supports what I'm about to say, but you can trust me on this, is that what's happened is we've seen a big decline in interest rates in short and intermediate term over the last few years, because inflation has dropped dramatically from where we were in late 21 and 22. And so we've seen that inflation drop, interest rates have dropped. But what's interesting to note is that long-term interest rates have not come down. Why is that? It's because of the second bullet that's on this chart here, is that and what I was just saying, we continue to issue a lot of treasuries. We continue to borrow more, our country does, than we continue to spend more than we have an income, and therefore we need to borrow to make that happen. And so the government issues treasury bonds. That's how they borrow money. And so the bond market here, with that at the top right-hand part of that curve, you look at that yield, the top right-hand part in the 20 and 30-year time periods, interest rates are still very high because the bond market feels that inflation is going to ultimately be running hot over the long haul because of how much money we're borrowing. The way we pay that back will be through debasing the value of our currency. Right? If you borrow money at 4% and you allow inflation to run at 5%, those dollars that you pay back 20 years later are actually cheaper. Right? So that's what the bond market is expecting here.
So one question, you said the interest rate is down. Why is the consumers not receiving some of that down trend of interest rate?
So short-term interest rates are down because that's all the Federal Reserve controls. They control the overnight borrowing rate, and so that's what they control. Anything longer on the yield curve is controlled by the bond market and the credit markets. And so when you look at this, and when you go out, you have the shorter term rates, and then you go out in 5, 7, and 10-year rates. Those rates have actually, as we speak, have actually moved up a little bit this year. And those are the rates that are generally or more frequently used for car loans and mortgage rate establishment. And certainly, now you get into the credit card world, that's an entirely different animal, right? I mean, those interest rates, I mean, they're like 20 some odd percent, some of those things, right? So, but that's why. So we do need to see a reduction in longer term interest rates in order for it to have a bigger benefit for auto loans and mortgages.
When I look at this yield curve, it's positively sloping, which it had been negatively sloping in the past. But this is more normal, this type of yield curve for the economy.
It absolutely is.
Okay, however, now, I don't know about recently, but in the past, the Treasury had been issuing short-term treasuries to finance the debt and not issuing long-term paper.
Yeah, and as you may recall, there was a lot of criticism when interest rates were so low, why would the government not be issuing longer-term treasuries, right?
It's because we didn't have any say in it, you and I.
Right.
We would have been selling 2%
Yeah,
treasuries.
You should have, we should have locked in
Yes.
those 3% long-term treasuries, you know, by as much as we could borrow,
Yeah.
but they didn't. And so now, that's the other thing, when we look at our year-to-year deficits and interest rates are higher, we're spending a huge amount of money every year just paying off interest rates now because those interest rates have moved higher. So it's we missed an opportunity there, and but that's water under the bridge. And as we talked about, there's only two ways this is going to get fixed. One is what I just mentioned, and the other is that we're going to start becoming fiscally responsible, and our government's going to start spending a lot less money. So you tell me what you think is the more likely of the two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good. Any other questions? Good. Well,
Thank you.
it's interesting, and thanks for the conversation. It's pretty educated. I think everybody here.
Education.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right, thank you. Good to see everybody.
Okay, folks, welcome to the Audit and Finance Committee. This is the month that, we kinda like, at least I like it. This is that month when we don't have those fiscal financial statements because we're closing down the books for March and everything. So, the agenda is much different, which is good for a change. You guys are working us too hard anyway. So at this point, as we look at this, we're not gonna go over the financial position because it's not gonna happen this month as we close the books, you know. Plus, maybe wanna just mention a couple things about the audit and it'll be
Yeah,
forthcoming.
the audit has begun. We're in the interim period where they start doing their preliminary testing, so they've been here on site Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We have a communication system, so electronic, so they've been working through that. They can do a lot of the stuff also in the office, so they're not on site today, and they weren't on site yesterday. And then they'll be back the first full week in May to start the whole audit. By then we'll have a preliminary statement, and we'll review that in the May board meeting. All of the numbers will be pretty close to being final, with exception generally to our OPEB and pension entries that we make at the end of the fiscal year. So you guys will get that preliminary statement in May, and then in June the auditors will be here to give us hopefully A+ report again. That's my goal. But yeah, it's going good, and I anticipate to continue going that way.
And, I wanna thank Janine, because she always reminds me about the engagement letter with the scope of the services. So as from a governance standpoint, we've signed off as me representing the board for that, as that goes on. So, keep things moving here today. We're gonna look at, the first resolution up is 3A. It's gonna be, Chris is gonna talk to us about the Microsoft software licensing. Chris, good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. This resolution is for the renewal of our current Microsoft licenses. This is for the entire authority. The contract will be paid for with operating funds. The current New York State OGS contract was awarded to SHI International Corporation as the Microsoft reseller. The pricing we received from SHI was in the amount of $606,769. That's for a 3-year agreement for these licenses. Competitive bidding is not required when purchasing off of this particular New York State OGS contract, as SHI was the sole entity for this contract by New York State. Therefore, it is our recommendation that the board award the contract to renew our Microsoft licenses. To SHI International, the contract would begin June 1st and run for 3 years.
Once again, remember, when we talk about OGS pricing, and I know Ray's aware of it, and I know Tony's aware of it too, and also Heather's aware of it, is that the state negotiates the prices with the vendor, and then it's like a statewide price. Any questions for Chris? Okay, no questions, may I have a motion? Neil, second. Tina, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is resolution 3B. Jason's going to talk about a contract award for electrical services. Jay.
Good morning, everybody. This contract is for electrical services. It will be paid for operating funds. The invitation to bid was publicly read on January 26th. I think that's what we're reading. 154 vendors were invited, 26 of which were New York State certified minority and women business enterprises. And in total, 19 bid packages were downloaded. On February 23rd, 3 bids were received, with the lowest responsible bidder being Patricia Electric. There is a 30% MWBE goal on this contract. Therefore, it is our recommendation that the board award the contract for electrical services to Patricia Electric for a 5-year term commencing December 1st, 2026.
Questions for Jason? Heather.
Are they a local company?
Yes, they are located here in Syracuse.
Any other questions? If not, may I have a motion? Heather, I'll second. Well, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thanks, man. Yeah. Okay, Tara's got a few things today. She's going to start out with resolution 3C. Resolutions for section 5307 and 5339 grant program. Tara.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. So the first resolution in front of you is to authorize me to go ahead and apply for this year's 5307 and 5339 funds with the FTA. Our program of projects is attached to the resolution for you, and those will be the projects that we're gonna fund with this grant. The grant totals $36.2 million or 27.8 federal. And I am requesting to be able to move forward.
Any questions for Sarah?
What are the percentage breakdowns of state and federal and local funding match requirements on those two grants?
So it's either an 80-10-10 split or a 50-50. So the only 50-50 project that is in there is gonna be the operating assistance that you see in Oneida. Otherwise, the remainder of the projects are 80% federal, 10% state, and 10% locally funded.
Okay, thank you.
I have a motion. Nina, second, Anthony. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, go get the money.
I'm asking to get more money.
We got a couple more coming. 3D authorization, CEO extension grant agreement, for a little bit over 17.5 million.
Yes. So this grant agreement is 100% state funded. It is $17.5 million. It is part of the ZET application, or the Zero Emission Transit money through New York State. And it is gonna go toward the Oneida construction project. So this is a master agreement for the funding. This will allow us to enter into exception.
Yeah, any questions? I have a motion. Julia, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Moving on to a late payment at 3E, another grant authorization.
That came in yesterday afternoon, so my apologies, but I wanted to squeak it into this table while we could. This agreement is a supplemental agreement to an existing master agreement at the New York State level. It is $1.3 million in change for engineering services that will be used for the Portland facility. And this agreement right now has only that line item on it, and with your permission, we can execute
May I have a
this.
motion? Any audience, I have a motion, okay. Second, Luella, second, Tina, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Now go get them.
With your permission, you, Brad, and Chris, and you would sign.
Absolutely. You got me trained quite well.
Thank you so much.
So, Melissa had a little bit of a short, venue this month, but it's gonna catch us up next month. Because if you look on the bottom of the agenda, we got a lot of things to discuss in finance next month. So, Melissa, anything else you want to say, or?
That was completely.
Okay, we're gonna adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Hey folks, welcome to our April meeting on a beautiful day for a change. We're going to start out today with Pledge of Allegiance. Tara?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have another recognition for retirement. This individual is not here today, but Chris and team also thought it was appropriate that this person is recognized. So it's with great honor that I acknowledge Linda Fellman has served the Syracuse community for over 27 and a half years. She started in August of 1998 as the Operations Secretary, April 03. She held the title of the NTDD Clerical Assistant in Operations. This was a lateral move. In May 06, she was promoted to Operations Facilities Administrative Coordinator. September 11, she was promoted to Facilities Administrative Supervisor. Some of the duties were to monitor utilities, close out work orders, call vendors to repair equipment, received purchase orders to process for payment, maintain bus shelter listings, and organize, monitored the B&G inventory. If you think about all those things behind the scenes to keep things moving, that's a lot. She did a great job doing that. Thus congratulate Linda on her retirement effective April 1st, and on her 27 and a half years dedication to Central and to Syracuse community and all our customers. Congratulations. We have a quorum present. Our next meeting date is May 29th. We will have governance, which I'll speak to Darlene ahead of time about that. Audit and finance, we'll have our board meeting. We have a motion to approve the regular minutes of March 31st. Tina, second. Neil, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Executive director report. Okay. Oh, yes, and just to let you know, today, they have the regular board meeting and they were an annual board meeting, okay, to our officers, and we'll all take that. So we'll get through this portion of it, then we'll go over to the next portion. Okay. So we're gonna go over.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Just to highlight, we are still in a holding pattern on the state budget. They just released budget extender number 6. That extends the budget until Monday for appropriations. There's several things that we're holding it up that we're hearing about with the governor's insurance reform. Certainly the climate law regulations are a big topic. So they have a lot of things that they're working through in Albany. We're still advocating on our 15% through NIPTA. We just had a meeting yesterday to talk about some strategy to continue to get our message out there. Certainly checking in with our legislators, but also maybe looking at some PR initiatives and doing some commercials or running some ads in the Albany area to make sure that we're still keeping fresh in their mind when they get to the transportation piece to not forget about us. So still working through that. Hopefully we see a budget sometime soon, but certainly budget number 6, and I would think because of Monday being the deadline for that, we're probably gonna see number 7 over the weekend or at least Monday morning. Certainly the conversation of better bus and system redesign. One conversation we had, Bren, Jackie, myself met with County Legislator Meeker, who is District 2, which is really like the Liverpool, the western side of the city, northwest side of Liverpool, Phoenix area, heading up in that direction, to just go over the system redesign, what it meant for his area. Make sure we answered some questions with him. He was also supposed to do a tour of the facility, but his questions ran longer than his time allowed, so he wants to circle back and do a tour of the facility. Certainly eager to understand our system and what it entails and what happens, but it was a good conversation on that topic and system redesign, and just continuing that just for informational pieces. Yesterday, we did hold our public hearing on the Better Bus Onondaga, and Bren is going to give some more details on that. But that conversation happened last night, and certainly there were other conversations that happened. We've had a conversation with Tina regarding the system redesign, and also with Heather following up from last month's board meeting to really make sure that we answer all the questions and then looking at the concerns they have and making sure we can find mutually beneficial resolutions. And how do we keep in mind their constituents and the people they represent as well. So all good conversations. More details to follow when Bren talks about what the public hearing means and the timeline on that, but certainly an exciting time for us in Syracuse and Onondaga County, as this is the largest system redesign and change we've had in over 20 years. So a lot of excitement behind that, and Bren will give us more, and we look forward to the process continuing from there. The last week, we, Chairman Leno, Melissa, Bren, and myself were down in Washington, D.C., doing our advocacy work to really focus on the system reauthorization, the transportation reauthorization bill. And this is essentially what we have in the bipartisan infrastructure law, the IIJA, that passed 5 years ago. So that expires in September of this year for a reauthorization, a new five-year reauthorization that would start October 1st. So we met with staff in Gillibrand's office, Schumer's office, Mannion's office, Tenney's office, and attended several conferences down there with the APTA staff that also brings in some of the federal administration to give us updates on what they know and what's happening and their staffers. Very informative, but certainly knowing a lot is happening in DC. So I would say a general consensus is they're working on the bill. I think the House is supposed to release their markup to the transportation bill now. The deadline we were given earlier this week is May 13th. But then they still have to agree and pass it, then it has to go to the Senate. The Senate hasn't released anything in their approach on the transportation bill yet. We also know, as Tim and Jim talked about, we have midterm elections that happen this fall, so it's right around the time of the proposed passing and start of the reauthorization bill. So there's a lot of conversation about a continuing resolution happening for the current bill to continue funding until they pass a larger 5-year bill. One thing I can share that I didn't highlight in my report is almost 2 weeks ago today, the president has released his transportation proposal. And I will tell you the funding is significantly cut from what we have seen today. Just on the 5307 and 5339 formula funding that Tara was just kind of talking about, he's proposing a 23% cut in that funding. The competitive funding that we've been very successful at in the last 3 years for capital funding, so the Oneida facility, the 28.8 million, the BRT project that we got for the 20 buses to start that project, to the last 3 years, $54 million, I think, just in the capital funding without the local match. Those are the first 3 awards we've received in history that we could find for competitive funding. The proposal the president put forward cuts that funding, competitive funding amount in half. So that brings us back to 2012 funding limits. So there's a lot of work to do in this space. We advocated pretty hard. The legislators understand our need, but we're seeing nothing has gone backwards. Everything is increasing in cost. Our bus costs, our facilities costs, our maintenance costs, but yet the funding is now going backwards. So we're advocating hard on that, and we've advocated hard in the 5 days we were in DC.
Yeah, I think I was proud of the team because, when you're with a staff who have been doing this for a long time, you only have so much time to deliver your message. So you have to get your message out precise, quickly, and be able to answer any questions that they might have. And I gotta say that Brad, Melissa, and Chris did a great job doing that. And the other thing too, when you think about the costs that have increased, I remember when buses were about 400-something thousand. Now they're 840,000, and they've probably gone up in the last few years about 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
So it's real. It's a real increase. But it seems like there's a lot of support in both houses for public transportation. So that was quite well. Also, I want to just thank Heather for coming down Wednesday. We went a little deeper on some of the concerns she has, and Chris and I are going to be meeting with County Administrator along with Heather in Oswego to go over a few things there. Mm-hmm. And it was good. It was I always say you wanna be in front of things and you wanna be in front of people's faces, especially when you're advocating for certain funding. Because I always believe this, is the money doesn't come into our accounts. So we have to make sure that we have a good message for the benefit of riders.
Also, a couple highlights. Yesterday, Ramen, Mike, Steve LaRue, Jeff McCall, Casey Proud, and myself, we attended the Onondaga County Traffic Safety Advisory Board, their annual meeting where they present the awards, if anybody's seen this in the news. So we present the Gerald Dietz Award. Jerry was a 39-year employee here at Centro. And a lot of people know him, historical, as far as drivers and community, very involved in the safety of our community and promoting safety for Centro, but also safety in the community in other areas. He was one of the co-founders of the Lights On Caravan to stop DWI that started in 2006, I believe. So this was the 30th year of that award, and I was asked to come in and present that award to Syracuse Police Officer Lonnie Dotson, who's probably their go-to guy for accident investigation, accident reconstruction, and recreation. He's been a great friend of ours. He's come in several times to work with our supervisors and our staff on accident training, accident investigation training. So it was an honor to present that to a friend of Centro and somebody that supports Centro for many years. And we are a member of the committee. Mike, I believe, I think Mike is our lead member from the safety board, but certainly a great event to attend, and congratulations to Lonnie and all of the award winners. I know they highlighted it on .com and yeah, great news coverage on that event as well. A few other things just to update on, driver class update. So this time of year in the spring, I guess the winter class or our January class overlap a little bit. So the current class that is coming close to graduating, there was 12 operators in that class. 4 have already turned in full time. We have 8 more that'll go full time Monday. So that'll conclude that class for a total of 12 full-time operators for here in Syracuse. And we have an April class that actually started on April 13th. And there are 13 individuals in that class that is in process right now. So continuing to see the success and recruitment and working to continue to build our driver ranks to get prepared for the system redesign. So all good things happening there. Tomorrow we are participating in our 6th annual Earth Day cleanup. I mentioned this last month. That is actually going to take place tomorrow. I know Heather, you were participating, so thank you for being part of that. We have somewhere over 50 participants between family members and employees to come in and clean up around our area here for the main property. And then we do also a piece across the street around Upstate Logistics. So it's a very well attended event. We'll be here tomorrow morning doing that with some other partners here on the southwest side. So we're excited to see that continue to grow and be successful. And then for Jackie, I have to throw this out there. If you haven't, please do your FDS filing. They are due here in a couple weeks. So if you need help or you need assistance for any reason, please reach out to Jackie or myself to get you that assistance, but please file your reports. Any questions on my report? Being none, I'm going to move into staff reports, Mr. Chairman and Jeff.
Thank you, Chris. Morning, morning members of the board. Yeah, a couple things to talk to you about. The New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, DEC, conducts an annual inspection to evaluate how Centro manages the accumulation of waste and how we dispose of it. As part of these requirements, Centro must maintain a detailed documented tracking when its waste is accumulated, generated, and disposed of. Centro handles various types of waste, including oil, coolant. You get, if something spills into soil, we got to get that cleaned up, some contaminated soils, and other various types. The facility actually has 2 types of tanks on property. We've got underground and above ground, pretty much in all of our areas, and we have to maintain those and report if anything is ever wrong with them. So if we do have a spill, we have to call the DEC. We have to notify them within, I think it's 12 hours, document the incident, outline what we did,
and how we corrected it, and managed the disposal of the waste. The company utilizes contractors to come out to dispose of everything for us. During the most recent inspection, Centra successfully met the DEC's requirements and passed all the hazardous waste requirements. So we passed our test. Going on to CNG tanks, we actually did, the operation is all up and running. The 3 compressors are running and the dispensers are doing very well. We're currently working on the defueling portion. That system's getting tested and it seems to be working out just fine. We're also working through some minor issues, and that's only because of, it's new and people are getting used to it. And lastly, the paratransit buses showed up today. So all 9 will be here. So we got the onboarding process happening, and what we're going to do is inspect the bus, put the fare box in there, and the VIA tablets, and then get them registered.
Are they platform,
Yeah.
with the platform? That platform thing is the best safety thing we have ever done. I've never felt safer on a bus.
That's what we hear. We're going to continue to put those in there.
Good deal.
So we should have them on the road within a couple weeks.
Can we see them?
We can have one brought around.
Yeah, I'll have one brought around, bring in the front.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see them.
They
They
were out
actually
there
showed
earlier.
up.
They showed up and delivered them over
Yeah.
here. So,
Yeah, I'll bring it out there right now.
What I'm talking about, Heather, is you come up the lift, you come in, and then there's a platform you park your chair on, and it has electronics that make sure everything is tight, that your seatbelt is on properly, everything. I never felt like I'm not gonna move. Cause sometimes I get these little girls driving a call bus, they're about as big as my pinky, and they don't have the arm strength. And you can't discriminate against them, cause that's not right, but now they have a system, they pop the button and
So it's automatic versus, were they manually doing it before with like Q strings? Or?
Yes.
so we use Q Street. So this is the newest Q Street that
Oh.
and it's my favorite thing.
That's great.
The only thing is you gotta make sure you clean all around under it because the salt and the dirt do make it malfunction.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll put it out here.
it makes it easier for us to clean the belts too. That's literally 2
Yeah,
screws may
they
pop
suck
out,
'em
so
right-
we could swap them in and out versus the current system that it retracts and it's in.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good features to it that they listen to feedback and modified. So we'll get one of the buses pulled up out front.
Yep.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks. Any other questions?
Very good, Jeff. Thanks.
Ron?
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Today I'll mostly be talking about Call Bus and so we also have a quarterly report, so I'll be calling Josh up to give the exact details on that. But earlier this month, Centra was the host location for a New York product training and partner workshop provided by VIA, which is our vendor for paratransit and on-demand software. And at that workshop, there were several New York Transit authorities and county mobility planners, including Heather Snow from Oswego. And basically, there has been large increases in call bus. This is not a secret. And spoiler alert to Josh's presentation, the numbers keep going up. But we've been very successful over the past few years managing the volume and the demand increases through technology, using more efficient planning tools such as VIA. And we've seen real savings through better ride planning tools and optimization of routing, along with savings through the mobile app that was introduced, and also customer service experience improvements. And at the workshop, we learned a lot about what's coming. We're really excited actually for a lot of the things that are coming. It was a really productive meeting, and I'm not going to go through all the details of all the things coming. One, because of time, and secondly, there's a lot of technical stuff, but I do want to just give a high-level overview of some of the things we should be seeing in the near future and in the next few years, frankly. There were many updates to the UI or user interface that affect our drivers, that affect customers, and also the back end, our operations team. And some of those changes, such as color coding for the app for the driver that allow the driver to focus more on what they need to see. Less distractions means more focus on what matters most, which is safe driving. So things, like green for pickups and red for no-shows, things like that, but also repositioning certain tools within the app. Other updates, some of which we've already started using, last in, first out, which we started using, which really helps the rider experience when there are multiple mobility devices on a vehicle.
Is that now working?
Yeah.
Because 2 weeks ago it wasn't.
Yeah, so we are rolling that out, and Josh could go into a little bit more detail on that, but that is something that we are using now. Live Ops Maps, which basically allows our team to view all the vehicles on the road at any given point in time, real time, rather than having to click into each vehicle and do a lot of more manual stuff. So we've seen real improvements with that. There's going to be some improvements to the eligibility portal, which hopefully will speed up the application and review process for new customers. Caregiver is something that they're going to be rolling out, which is going to help us allow caregivers essentially better access to handle rides for people that they're working with. Suspension management is we're going to be having better tools to suspend and based on no-shows, things like that. IVR is interactive voice response, and that's something most people are used to. Click a key for a certain option. That's an IVR system. But coming soon this summer, VIA is going to be rolling out an AI IVR, which is essentially going to allow customers to have interactive conversations and schedule rides, handle cancellations, which will lessen the burden on our call bus coordinators. And we've been very successful in controlling our costs and managing our resources as efficiently as possible. And these are the ways we're going to continue to be able to provide the resources to the services to the community that we are obligated to provide. And so we're excited about the improvements that are coming, and you'll be seeing them. Some you won't be seeing, but they'll be more on the back end, but some the customers will see as well over the next months and into the next years. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to take them. Otherwise, I'll call Josh up to give our quarterly call bus report. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So March ended the fourth quarter cab ridership report. Our consolidated ridership is up 13% over prior year. That's the trend for the last couple of years, 10 to 13% increase year over year. Looking at each property, Auburn ridership was up 29%. Syracuse was 13%, Oswego was up 5%, Rome was up 2%, and Utica was up 1% over prior year. So we just continue to see that growth at all properties, a little less in the Oneida area, but Auburn was a big increase, and we continue to see big increases in Auburn.
Can you repeat those one more time?
Yeah, so Auburn was 29%, Syracuse was 13%, Oswego was 5%, Rome was 2%, and Utica was 1%. Cortland, I don't have a percentage of increase because we're still in that first year by the end of this report for now. So going forward, we'll have specific numbers for Cortland to compare to prior year.
I would love to see data on the increased utilization of the vehicles with the shared ride component. Are you guys able to pull any of that data to show how well the software is actually putting people together? I know that you guys can see those thresholds that are increasing to say, hey, there was 20% of the rides being shared in paratransit, but now there's 30% because the software is helping. I'm just curious to see what those increases would look like since you guys have implemented that.
Yeah, we can look at it from the start of VIA to now. Our previous software did not have that capability of telling us or reporting to us the shared ridership. VIA does a much better job that information. We can actually see the mileage that was shared. We can also see the duration of the shared time. So VIA is very good with the reporting in that aspect, so we can definitely get that report too.
Is it fair to say that that increase in shared rides has also driven down cost?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And with VIA, the utilization has gone up, the trips per hour, compared to the old system. So,
Thank you.
no problem, thank you. Any other questions?
Thanks, Josh. Bruce?
Good morning, everyone. Just a few quick updates here, starting with PDS. Back in February, I mentioned about us scheduling a system health check. That's scheduled for the week of 4 May. And a PDS engineer will be on site for about 3.5 days. The goal is to pinpoint workflow bottlenecks, identify features we're paying for but not using, and recommend process updates to modernize how we use the system. Excuse me. On the Clever side, the infrastructure upgrade, 2 days ago on Wednesday, we received over 400 pounds worth of equipment that's sitting in our server room right now for the hardware upgrade. The server room's cleanup is complete, and new electrical's been installed to support the equipment. Our next step is to finalize required vendor documentation. Once that's done, we'll schedule a technician to come on site to install and configure the hardware. After the hardware is in place, we'll move into the software installation and configuration phase. We're finalizing the scope of work with Clever and expect to have that locked in within the next week or two. Last thing on the security side, deals with a Microsoft security update, and we're working against another Microsoft deadline here, and it deals with their secure boot. The security keys that help verify a computer is safe to start are set to expire in June of this year. Systems that don't meet the trusted keys or don't update those trusted keys can be exposed to security risks, including malware that's difficult to detect and remove, and in some cases causes the system restarts, having systems not starting up. Because updating these keys is a multi-step process, we're taking a controlled approach to avoid disruptions. We've used multiple tools to help us identify and categorize the affected systems, and we're preparing vendor recommended automated actions to remediate them. And the deployment's going to be incremental and closely monitored. And that's all I have for updates, unless anybody has some questions for me.
That's a lot. Heather?
The Clever devices, because those are installed directly on the buses, right?
This is the back end.
The back end.
This is the back end piece, all the servers, mass storage, the switches and all that.
Okay, do you guys maintain those, or is it outside technicians that come in, or is it all internal?
It's all us internal, with the back end infrastructure, we support all that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Bruce. And Brent, the big topic of the week.
So before I talk about the big topic of the week, we're gonna go with ridership. Give you a ridership update for the month of March. Overall, we're up about 3%, 3.2% overall for all 5 properties. But to break that down, Onondaga County was up 3.3%. Cayuga County was up 10%. Oswego County, we know that the contract and the needs of SUNY Oswego have changed, so overall they were down, but for a city service, which is what we can control, that was flat. It's actually funny, it was literally 1 person more than last year, so slightly up, but really a 0% increase.
We can count that.
Right, one extra person, right? Oneida County, we had 2% up in Utica and 20% up in Rome. So Rome's still doing great and building for some reason, which we are super excited. No, we actually know what the reason is, right? Because we redesigned the system and it works better for the customers. So
Those numbers would probably even go up more with the big building of the Chobani plant, so that's gonna even be a.
yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting. So again, overall, 3.2%. So doing good on ridership. We'll keep watching it. But public hearing was last night. The Better Bus Onondaga public hearing was last night. Of course, we've been having these conversations, and we've talked about it already in this meeting with Tina and with Heather, with a bunch of municipalities in the area, with the city and the county, talking to whoever will let us talk to them, right? And having really good conversations and making people understand what the changes are planned for, how they're going to impact customers, and all of that good stuff. Our public hearing was last night. I want to say a huge thank you to the service development team and the marketing and communication teams. So that was James, Paula, Lynette, Casey, Alicia, Zach, Emily, Stephen, and Julia. We did a lot of work to get ready for this meeting last night. We had a mock public hearing here in the boardroom with some hecklers. It was fun. And right, we got some staff in here to stir up some good questions for us. And so we were ready last night, and it was a good turnout. So we had 52 attendees. We had more than 20 speakers get up to speak for us. The emphasis was, here's our plan. We want to listen to your final round of feedback, right? We've been getting feedback all along. It's really been 3 years. We did that we did that Exploring Tomorrow's Transit with SMTC. That reached over 1,000 people. And then with the Better Bus Onondaga outreach, we've done 3 specific outreaches that reached over 1,000 people as well. So we've been talking to people, right? And all along the way, we've been making changes as people are giving us more feedback. Of course, we have our consultants who are the experts in the room, not only our team who are the experts on our service, but looking at transit propensity, which is, where people want to go, where people travel, not just riders, but in general, everybody, right, in the county, and how, where there are destinations and where there are origins, and all of the good stuff that we're looking at to say, how does transit work more efficiently? So we've got this plan. We've taken it out now to the public 3 official times where we've said, here's what we're thinking. What's your feedback? And we got some more good feedback last night. We have another week. We're leaving it open until the end of this month. So another week where we're going to continue to collect feedback. We're going to take all that feedback, sit down for a minute with our consultants, and figure out if there are additional things that we need to change, that we need to adjust to make it work for everybody as efficiently as possible. So super excited. Again, the highlights. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
So last night I was very proud of everybody. They did a great job, Brenda, on that. Paul, everybody was there. And sometimes in those hearings, it is difficult because people want an answer to their question there. And you guys did a good job of managing that. This is for input only,
Right.
and then we're coming back. And then I liked when you re-emphasized at the end how many modes that you had to contact us with. And it was actually funny, whoever uses a fax anymore. But you had everything. But I thought it was done well, and there was a lot of good stuff that came up last night. And after you guys, now go through it all. But it was well attended, and I thought the venue, I've been to a lot of these, that room was probably the best venue I've ever seen. So whoever planned that was good move. Because it made people, and I noticed on this one, a lot of people thanked the authority, and people were kind of supporting each other in there. So the temperature was nice.
Yeah, that was the goal.
I made it a purpose to go around and talk to the people individually and see what they were seeing. Some things they might want to say, but not be able to say anything in public. And I'm glad that you guys are going to take and evaluate the things that they were saying, and some of the changes that have been made. Look at it, see the innovation thing can be done.
Right.
And the 20 speakers that was there, we had people there who was in wheelchair and all that kind of stuff, and that was good to know. And they had their own personal opinion. I can understand that they're trying to get working in some of the places that they're concerned about, if not be able to get to work and stuff like that. And I know you guys are going to be evaluating all those situations.
It was awesome. The vast majority of attendees were riders, and that's exactly who we need to hear from. Obviously, we planned it to be kitty corner from the hub, so super easy to get to for our riders. And it was a good meeting.
One thing, the route that you had from Midland to Price Right and stuff like that, I had a lot of people trying to talk to me about that, about why they changed that. And I know it was changed because when they were doing the street on 3 on the block, they had to make that change because it was real back in the street and all that stuff like that. And you did it for a while, and then now it's back on Midland again, so I hope you guys evaluate that.
Yeah, we have some ideas, certainly starting to brainstorm already. We've been thinking about it, talking about some options, and of course we'll get our consultants together and come up with our final plan to present to you all. I will say we'll probably not bring it in May. We were thinking that we would like to bring it in May, but I think we got enough comments where we might need to take another beat, and so maybe we'll see you in June to bring it to the board with our final plan. We're excited to be working with our consultants on it.
Sounds like a plan.
And this new proposed service change sheet that I gave y'all gives you a little bit more information. It's trying to be easier to read, and I love this new format, and so check it out, and this is on our website as well.
You did it. Question that was asked, some of the people said they didn't quite understand that, and I know you guys will be able to understand it more.
Yeah, we know that even once this board approves the changes, we just need to be out there talking to people constantly for the next year. You know, we're planning for these service changes to go into effect in summer of 27, but that means we just need to keep talking to people so that we're getting them ready for it, continually educating the public as to what changes are happening. Because yeah, some of the comments were confusion, and so now we need to clear those up, right?
I think what you're getting at was one or two people might have mentioned about if there were some streets that were printed on there.
Yeah.
Even if it was the main thoroughfares, that might help you a little bit.
Yeah, and the website, centro.org/Better Bus Onondaga, is so detailed, but we'll point people to that and make it a little bit easier to understand.
And you're gonna get your plan next time.
And I'm gonna have a pointer next time instead of my finger. I mean, it wasn't that bad, but yes, a pointer. Awesome.
I did want to say, I appreciated the time that we took together. I think that Centro's, we hear you, method is working really well. I can tell you that I have a tremendous amount of respect for the fact that this leadership here is being extremely proactive and saying, we hear you, we're gonna meet with leadership, we're gonna talk to people to make sure that policymakers understand the reasoning behind changes and proposed solutions. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
Because I know last meeting it was a bit intense for some of the conversations.
I am one of the boots on the ground people, because people know where to find me. And I appreciate like that you took the time to baby step me through, so I understood exactly, and you were able, it's almost like you predicted what I was gonna wanna know.
We're trying, Tina, we're trying to predict what you wanna know.
But,
We can't predict you.
well, hey, Monday they were pretty good. I'm like, where are all the senior places? Have we covered all the senior living? Have we covered all the low income housing? Because I know what my people are gonna say. And the thing I appreciate the most is you're going above and beyond what is required. I mean, you know, making sure people are eased and grandfathered and are covered and aren't having to worry about crossing over move zones and having to pay more money, and that is gonna be, for every negative point I hear from my folks, I'm like, hey, they didn't have to do this for you, this is not required. And you guys know I'm out there on the street for you. And I just, like Heather, I just appreciate just being in the know and not knowing like I don't know enough not to get myself in trouble. I know enough that people will get a general, and I can say, okay, this is what I generally know, hang on. And people are really nervous about it because they feel like you're picking up the whole bus system, throwing it in the trash and starting again. I said, no, we're just trying to make it better. I said, and if we don't make it better, fares are gonna go up because we're going in empty buses. I explain things to people in a way they understand, and I like you explain things to me that I understand.
And letting them know that they can put their comment online and stuff like that, so to vary their part too, because a lot of the people that I know, they are not comfortable in knowing they can go to Central website and put a comment on there, that those comments are not going to be ignored, they're going to be looked at and reviewed.
So it's been a process, and we've taken the initiative to make sure, we're trying to educate people. Even though, if you really look at it, we have 7.5 million rides an annual basis. We can't talk to 7.5 million people, but we're trying to get out there, and anybody, as Brent said, that would talk with us, meet with us. Somebody reached out and had a question, bring them in, let's sit down and talk. And we've tried to do that with as many people as we can, and as people continue to reach out, we'll meet with them on anything. The system redesign, or just educate them on Central. That's the continuation we had with Heather as far as going up and talking with the legislature and the county administrator to, build that relationship and get in the understanding and make sure that we're meeting the needs. With the new administration from the city, I'm working on a meeting with that office and Mayor Owens' administration to make sure our initiatives line up with their initiatives and making sure that we're creating opportunities for our constituents. We're all in this for the same thing at the end of the day. And that's making sure that the people in our communities are thriving and we're making decisions that help them. So it's good to make sure we're aligned, and that's been a goal of mine.
We were talking about something a little earlier. People who have previously sat in that seat have been very inaccessible. And when people talk to me about being on the board, they say, well, you've been on there a long time, have you seen any change? I say, I've seen this place open up and be much more willing to be two ears, one mouth. Transparent, but also communicative. Not just coming down and say, hey, this is it. And that builds, because Centro had a really bad rep in the disability community for a long time. But I've been out there being Mary Sunshine and just saying, no, there's people there you can talk to. Right. You don't know who to talk to. Here, you got a call bus problem, talk to Josh. You're not getting the answers you need. Here's somebody farther up the ladder you can talk to.
That's so important.
And it builds a sense of trust that people didn't have before. And I just felt obligated to say that.
Well, thank you. We have a great team. We have a great team that's willing to start making change. And together we're moving that forward. So it's exciting to hear that. I thank you for that. And we'll continue.
Well, I think you understand too that more people with disabilities are entering workforce, or it's not just social transfer. And on that note, I'm off to the next.
So on your way out, the new call bus is out here. So just so you know that you can take a look at it. I've heard it just pull up.
One incident, the lady that's from wheelchair, her son, she spoke. She's a very educated person. I met with her.
Yeah, we work with Agnes. She's on the APAC committee. I communicate with Agnes. It's not weekly, certainly every other week.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Brent. Mr. Chairman, one thing that I did not highlight, but following up on Jeff's report, so the CNG fueling station project, minus a few punch list items, is complete. The FTA has reached out to us to do a ceremony of a ribbon cutting for that. So that is scheduled. Actually, Region 2 Director Michael Pulado will be here on May 13th. We're working on invites with the marketing team. I'll make sure Janine sends it out to the board. We're working on some state and federal delegation to be here, certainly with both the budget and things happening in Washington. They are in session. So we're going to see who will be able to be here We'll reach out to the mayor and also the county executive, but we will do a ceremony of kind of a ribbon cutting and a reopening of the CNG fueling station now that it's complete. So that'll take place May 13th at 10 a.m. here in Syracuse. Just to get it on your radar for that and more information to follow in the coming day or next week. And that concludes our report, Mr. Chairman.
We'll bring it to audit and finance. All these were discussed in detail in committee. We have no financials this month based on the close of prior year and the preparation for the audit that begins. So with that being said, we had resolution 3A. Committee made a motion to bring it to the full board to authorize the contract award for the Microsoft software licensing in amount of a 3-year contract at $606,000 plus with Office of General Services contract pricing. Recommendation was in accordance with the license agreement with SHI International Corp. Totaling $606 odd from June 1st, 26 to May 31st, 29. I have a motion. Luella, second. Heather. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Resolution 3P, resolution to authorize contract award for electrical services. A number of bids went out and a lot were downloaded, but 3 came to surface. And with that, there was a recommendation based on the cost. Also, there's 30% NWB pull on this contract to award contract to Patricia Electric for a 5-year term commencing December 1st, 26. May I have a motion, please? Neil, second. Julius, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, the next 3 resolutions and Tara brought forward. I like seeing Tara because she usually brings money to the table to spend it, so it's nice. So resolution 3Z, authorizing resolution for section 5307, 5339 grant programs. A motion was made to the full board for approval. May I have a motion, please? Neil, second. Luella, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Resolution 3D, once again, grant agreement for $17,500 in zero emissions transit monies. Motion is made to approve this. May I have a motion, please? Neil, Heather, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Continuing with grants, resolution 3E, $1,300,000 odd funding New York State in section 5311 funds for payment, which was made for approval. May I have a motion, please? Julius, second. Neil, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Robert, some comments on the pension committee, please.
This morning we had a pension committee meeting and Lesko presented a detailed overview regarding the authority's returns and allocations and a very good market overview. But I'd like to add that the portfolio they constructed is very well constructed and it should achieve the long-term goals that the pension plan has, and it's been structured with an acceptable level of volatility. And there's one more thing, okay, what I know about pension plans, defined benefit pension plans is, are they fully funded? And this one absolutely appears to be fully funded, which is significant, in my opinion. So that concludes the pension committee report.
Good. Okay. Nominating committee, our slate of officers for next year. I'm going to turn this over to Luella.
The nominating committee has presented a slate for the new year. And Nicholas F. Lane as chairman, Anthony Q. Davis as vice chairman, Darlene DeRosa Blackmore as secretary, Tina M. Fitzgerald as treasurer. So this is the slate that is presented for this new year.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Have a motion. Heather, second. Robert, any discussion? All in favor? Old business.
This is some business. We have an event coming up on that's in the classified old business. On community, there's gonna be a community day on Saturday, May the 23rd. I don't know whether Central gonna be able to be there, but.
I sent you an email, it's Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, if we can get some.
We've hit the marketing team pretty hard,
Yeah.
to try to get somebody to come in on a Saturday, it's been tough, for that weekend.
Mhm.
So we can get you, if you want information or pamphlets or anything we can put together for you, let us know.
Right.
And we'll get a packet for you to have available for that day.
But I know the mayor's gonna be there, myself gonna be there, Senator May, office gonna be there, and Hunter, what's her name?
And Hunter?
She's gonna be there, and all of those on committees that I serve with, they're gonna be there. And we're gonna have Housing Vision Unlimited, home headquarters, Time of Jubilee, and all this program here. We didn't have it last year, but Central did attend the one the year before that. Or something like that. So it'll be a good event, at least we get some information passed out to the people in the area. And I know Tina indicated that she might wanna, come down to call of us, I don't know how. And then she can explain any information to the people better than I can, but not call of us. And I know I'm trying to get my wife to get a call of us, but she said, no, I got my family here. He said, you got my daughter, they give me a ride and stuff like that.
You provide information.
Right.
Yep.
Do you guys ever think about just parking a call bus out there for people to see how the lifts function and to see how they're?
In some cases, we've done it, it's just manpower and staffing it.
Right.
And putting it up so somebody's there with them, typically we try to send a bus with a supervisor too, so, it's possible, we've done it in some cases. It's just, sometimes when it's a holiday weekend, it makes it a little hard for this.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see, new business,
Oswego County approached Centro in supplying buses what we call Government Day. And so we formally just wanted to thank Centro for being able to do that for our county. Our buses that we have are very small. And we have 26 legislators that will be going on the bus and having a tour of all of the government buildings. And so thank you for being able to do that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, glad we're able to.
any other new business? Before we go and ask for a motion for executive session, I know, everybody have a good weekend. Enjoy it. I think it's, unfortunately, it's gonna rain, but let's keep the faith, it's not snow, right? So at this point, motion on executive session to discuss a personnel matter involving potential employment action affecting a specific employee. Neil, second. Second. Julie, any discussion, all in favor? came out of the executive session. I'm gonna present a motion to approve a compensation increase for the CEO with a 2.25% pay scale step, a 2.5% COLA, and a merit of $7,500. May I have a motion, please? So moved. Anthony, second. Heather, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Have a great weekend.